means England have now played 14 consecutive games without a win in all forms of international cricket.
Is there any truth, Bill, in the story that Oldham are getting their plastic pitch back as well? Because they did so awfully well when they had Plastic and Joe.
No, nothing confirmed.
You've not heard anything yet?
No. But you never know.
You can smell molten plastic, can't you, all over Manchester at the moment? I mean, people are throwing milk bottles and all sorts in there, and then in 2 years' time they'll get one and they'll go up a grade. It's fantastic.
BBC Radio Manchester, Satellite Weather, with Diane Oxbury.
It's a very spring-like day today. There's a good deal of sunshine around, but every now and then that's going to disappear behind some thin, high clouds, so don't expect it to be wall-to-wall. The winds are light, though, and it will be a very pleasant afternoon. Top temperature nice and warm, 14 Celsius.
Allan Beswick, with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Well, there you go. Oldham have got Joe Royle back. Warrington are thinking of digging up Brian Bevan. He still played better than some of the clowns they've got now. Dear God. Look, I'll just say it once. Yes, I do know we got beat 60 points to sod all. Well, not much anyway. A number of people in the office have mentioned it. So, that's it now. You needn't comment. It's all out there in the public domain, as they say. Oh, dear God. But it is now. I like consistency, you see. I do. Yeah. Lowe's and Smith, they're doing exactly what they did when they had the England team, which the Britain team, which is, of course, absolutely sod all. Anyway, good morning to you. I'm not bitter. England won at the weekend at the rugby, so I've no reason to be bitter. No. And I got a bargain on a path. Yeah, got a smashing bargain on a path, so that's all right. And yesterday, we went in that wonderful weather. Fantastic. We went to the Anderton lift, which at the moment is the Anderton standing still, because it's not actually doing anything. Well, it might be doing lifting, but not. They have a boat. You can go on a boat during the summer. You go there, and there's a boat, and you get on the boat. You walk down the hill. You get on the boat. It goes into the lift. They lift you up, and you get out at the top of the hill. It doesn't sound as exciting as it is, I'll grant you. Alternatively, you can get on the boat at the top of the hill, and it lifts you down. Can you lift down? It lifts you down, and then you get off at the bottom of the hill. And that's quite exciting as well, apparently. But yesterday, they weren't doing any of the lifting up and any lifting down. So I went to the bottom of the hill, I had to climb up again. Yeah. And when we were up, we were up, and when we were down, we were down. When we were only halfway up, we're neither up nor down. Extraordinary. Anyway, but we got some nice photos. And, oh yeah, fantastic! I've just remembered. There was an amazing treat at the Anderton lift. The fudge boat. No, neither have I. Never in a million. The fudge boat. This gentleman and his wife have a narrowboat, and on it, it's a shop. You don't actually go into it in the shop like you do normally. They sell fudge from the window. It's called the fudge, but I like a bit of fudge. And theirs is very nice. And they were awfully charming, and they were giving stuff away. You know, they give you samples. They have about 5 different kinds of fudge. I hope they're listening. On the fudge boat. Good morning. This is a free advert. Send me some fudge. So it's not free after all. But they give samples and all that. Tiny little, like, you know, like in Snakes and Ladders, little cubes like that. Fantastic. And then you buy some for whatever it was. Can't remember now. £1 or something. Might have been £2. Can't remember. Yeah, I'm that rich. So, yeah, I didn't pay. That's the other reason I don't remember. And they just sell it out of a window of the boat. And it's called the fudge boat. That was absolutely fantastic. That made my day. Had it been an ice cream boat, now that would have been perfect. You can't get better than that. Are there any others? I mean, you go on the canals every now and then. I know some of us even live on canals. I don't, but some people live on canals. My mate does, Nigel J. He lives on the canal, which is just as well, because he lives in a boat. You wouldn't keep it anywhere else. It wouldn't go. And it'd fall over to the side, wouldn't it, if you stood it in the front? So it's on the canal. Are there any others? Is there, for example, a fish and chip boat? Or, I don't know, a curry boat. That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? A biryani boat. Hey, a Balti boat. That'd be good. Are there any others around I'd go and see them if there was. Round here, on the canals. Wouldn't you? Fantastic. I'm thinking of getting, when the wheels come off this lot, I'm thinking of getting an ice cream boat. Yeah. They used to have shrimp boats, but they weren't the same. They used to go out and catch shrimps and then bring them back and sell them on the quay, as it were. This bloke doesn't catch fudge. The fudge, he makes it out of stuff what you make fudge out of. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Are there any others, like fudge boats? I was going to give you a list then, but frankly, I've only got a list of one. Fudge boat. And, yeah, there are nightclub boats and restaurant boats. There used to be that. Now, what was it called? There used to be one on the Leeds-Liverpool up at Burscough, and that used to be a boat that was a restaurant. I've forgotten what it was called. It might have been the Bollin or something like that. Anyway, that went up and down, and that was all right. And occasionally you get them on the Ship Canal as well, don't you? But something that actually pulls up and then sells stuff out the window. Fantastic. The fudge boat. Well, I'm merely asking now, are there any other such merchandising boats, boat shops? Because if there are, I'd be interested. Do tell. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and of course the text number, which is 07786 206 951. If you've something to say, it doesn't matter what it is, you can talk about anything. What do you think of the idea of a minimum price for alcohol, like 10 bob a unit? Now, if you're in a cafe, you know, a pub, and you're having a meal, a sort of cafe pub, and you have a glass of wine, I can't remember now, but it depends on the size of the glass of wine. But these days, that's usually maybe 2 units, a big glass of wine, 2 units of alcohol. So the minimum price of a glass of wine in a pub would be £1. Well, it's already about £2, so it wouldn't affect that, would it? The same in the bar, same in the pub. You're in the pub, you have a pint of beer. How many units in a pint of beer? Does anybody know? I don't drink enough to keep figures. But whatever it is, if there are, say, 2 again, that's £1. Well, it's very rarely you can get a pint of beer in it. Oh, don't start ringing with prices of beer, for God's sake. But it's very rare in a pub you can get a pint of beer for £1. So it's not really going to affect the in-house trade. But it is going to affect the off-licence trade, isn't it? You go into a supermarket, I was in one this morning, you go in a supermarket and you can get a can of lager, 1, 2 units, and frankly, it'll be a lot less than we're talking about. A huge 2 gallon, that would be big, 2 litre bottle of cider, well, that price would increase quite substantially, thus taking it out of the hands of the, should we say, well, the poor, but amongst the poor are those who've got not much money of their own. It's all their parents, so they're poor as well. Actually, I remember talking to Eddie Shah about his children. Eddie Shah, you know, multi-millionaire. And I said, how do you like being rich? He said, well, it's all right, he said. I said, it must be great for your kids. He said, no. He said, the kids come to me and say, can I have this? And me and their mum say, no, you can't. And they say, why not, Daddy? We're rich. And he says, no, we're not. Mummy and Daddy are rich. You're poor. You've got nothing. I like that. But there you are. 10 bob a unit for alcohol. Minimum price. Won't affect you in the pub. Won't affect you in the restaurant. And a few other places. It'll only affect you when you're buying off sales. What do you think of the idea?
We're losing time. Now is your time. Push hard now to get a gap.
Let's see if we can get him overtaken.
We've got company.
Very tight, we need everything you got.
Push hard now to catch up with the front of the field. Come on, lose him. Bravo.
Formula One, the world's greatest car chase, starts on the 29th of March, live across the BBC.
You see, I've never enjoyed Formula One. I've always thought it was a bit boring. But if they did all that, if you could hear all that when the race was on, that might be interesting, mightn't it? Neil says you've missed out the Love Boat. So what's that then? A knocking shot? They drag it up and down the Ship Canal? Yeah. Yes, I did see the film. And, you see, I knew you'd be like this. I can't be doing with it. I've had enough of you lot. Brian says, we've got a gravy boat. Does that count? Yes, I don't need it, you know. Yes, I need the money. That's the only reason I come here. It isn't to have the mickey taken out of me by the likes of you, I'll have you know. Exactly. Come on, you need a slap. What's he got to say? He's got... Oh, yeah, here we go. If there was a boat selling gravy, that could be Gravy Boat. Yeah, we just did that. Following the information of the origin of potholes... Oh, no. I wonder the origin of the kangaroo court. It's a good one, is that, isn't it? Kangaroo court. I'm not going to do the Scotchman locked in the lavatory job. Hoots, man, a kangaroo. Never mind. Oh, I did do it. The kangaroo court, where does that come from? It's a good question. Does anybody know the answer? And don't be making it up like the boats. This is serious stuff, this. Evidenced by this heel mail. Derek in Lee, he sends a lot. Alan, so Gormless Gordon, I think by that he means our beloved Prime Minister. So Gormless Gordon is to toughen up the FSA, Financial Services Authority. This, the same ex-chancellor who for nearly a decade looked the other way while banks and hedge funds pillaged to their heart's content. Gordon, before I die laughing, do me a favour and rearrange this well-known phrase. Horse, bolted, locking, stable door. That's Derek in Lee. In support of your view that it would be inappropriate to introduce laws that would turn innocent people into criminals, like having to carry ID cards, a useful weapon that the police and other authorities have in their fight against crime and their endeavour to make society a better place, is the assistance and cooperation law of the law-abiding and respectable element of society, which would be lost by turning the country into a police state. Well, that is true. That is true. If the police and the public lose faith in each other, and very definitely the other way, if the public lose faith in the police, then the consequence of that is inevitably a breakdown of law and order. We see it in so many foreign lands. One of the consequences that some modern historians, not all by any means, it's not universal, but one of the consequences of the miners' strike and the police being used to good effect within the miners' strike on behalf of the government rather than on behalf of simple law and order. One of the consequences of that is this disrespect that some people now hold the police in. So it is an important point. 0161 228 2255. I've seen a coal boat on a canal. Unfortunately, I don't remember where. Several harbours have petrol and diesel boats. Yeah, but you can see the need for that. I'm on about a boat that just pulls up at the side of the canal and starts selling stuff like a shop. You know, like the old Co-op My Boat. It's not local, but there's a sandwich shop on a canal boat in Stratford-upon-Avon. And it's very good too, says June. Thank you very much for that, June. Thank you. We like that. Any more? Yeah, any more for any more? Any more shops on canal boats? I love the idea, don't you? Don't you think that's fantastic? Or am I just being very, very silly indeed? 0161 228. It's the romantic in me. You know all about that, I'm sure. 0161 228 2255. Kevin says, with any product, how is me paying more for it going to stop somebody else using it? I've heard it said that drugs are now cheaper than alcohol. So what do you think the people will do to achieve a high? Pay more for drink or buy the cheaper drugs? Well, Kevin, they're not suggesting that you pay more for it, unless, of course, you buy it cheap somewhere. We have to look, don't we? We have to look at what's going on in our society, and then we have to take action to diminish the dark side of that. And the dark side of low-priced alcohol is a small proportion, because that's what it is, let's not demonise the young, but a small proportion of young people, 14, 15 years of age, managing to get cheap alcohol from the offie, getting smashed out of their mind on it, and then causing disruption in our streets. That's the picture. Now, one of the ways of dealing with that is to limit their ability to get the alcohol. There are already rules in force that prohibit them from purchasing it and prohibit others from purchasing it on their behalf, and those laws are, from time to time, flaunted. OK, flouted, not flaunted, perhaps are flaunted as well, but they're from time to time flouted. That's how the kids get it. So the other way is to take it out of their price range. Now, I'm not saying that's a good policy, but it's a policy. What do you say? 20 past 12 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Mark Edwardson.
A couple from Partington whose two sons were killed by a drunk driver have been told they can't adopt because they're still grieving. 8-year-old Ben and 10-year-old Aaron Peake died when the footballer Luke McCormick crashed into their car on the M6 in June of last year. A mother and her two children had to be rescued by neighbours after a suspected gas explosion in Bolton this morning. And 5 people have been arrested in raids in Scotland in connection with the violence that followed last year's UEFA Cup final in Manchester. Manchester's weather, bright and dry this afternoon. Your high, 14 Celsius.
You're never more than 20 minutes away from the latest traffic through the day.
BBC Radio Manchester.
We'll start with better news on the M62 eastbound. The earlier breakdown at the end of the slip road at junction 21, that has been cleared and the traffic is back on the move. Still a lane closure on the eastbound M67 slip road at junction 3. The entry slip then at Hyde is down to a single lane from the usual 2. In Warrington, Froghall Lane still closed off for those bridge works between the Pink Eye roundabout and the junction of Crossfield Street. And it's good news at the moment on public transport with no reported delays or cancellations. If you can update us, do give us a quick call on 0161 244 4951. I'm Jane Grindell.
Jane, you're marvellous, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, what's going on? 0161 228 2255. Would you like to join us? And if you do, what would you like to say? Laurie in Frodsham. Hi.
Hello, Alan. How you doing?
I'm very well. What can we do for you?
Kingsley, Frodsham it is.
It is indeed.
Kingsley, near Frodsham.
All right. Well, there's only about 4 houses there, so let's...
No, there's not. There's 750.
750?
2,000 people in Kingsley. I mean, it doesn't look very big, the village, but there's 750 houses. Well, there's probably 751 because we built a new one a year or two back.
Good God almighty.
Yeah.
Well, there you are.
Still a nice little village, though. Very nice village.
Well, make your mind up. It can't be both.
Oh, yes, it can. You've never been here.
I have, but not for a long time.
I bet you've only driven through.
Well, I didn't live there.
No.
And what would I go for other than living there? There's not much else.
Well, there's some very influential people in this area. You might have been visiting somebody.
Well, I don't visit influential people. They visit me. What have you got, Laura?
I've got 2 things very briefly.
Go on.
First one, Anderton Lift. I used to go up and down it a lot, actually, on my boat years ago, and the first thing you did was when you pulled into the lift, you'd say to the guy that was operating it, when did you last grease it? And check on that, because if they'd greased it recently at that time, I don't know if it's the same still or whether they've altered things, but all those cogwheels on the top used to be greased, and you used to get lumps of grease as big as tennis balls dropping on your head. So if they'd greased it recently, you used to get in the cabin out of the way. Anyway, just on that subject, I think it was 1978, they have a national rally of boats somewhere in the country every year.
Yeah.
I think it was 78. A lot of boats. They had the rally at Northwich on the river, so more or less 99% of the boats had to come via Anderton Lift.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, I don't know how many boats were there, but there's always a lot. So Anderton Lift suddenly went from being, from doing a few boats a week to certainly hundreds, maybe 1,000 over a weekend.
Good Lord.
And I won't say his name, but the nice old lad that used to operate it, and had been on that in the shed at the top where he pulls all the levers and things.
Yeah.
Well, people were giving him a drink. So, can you imagine what's coming?
I can indeed.
Everyone's giving him a drink. He kept drinking some of it or all of it. Eventually, somebody said, "What's going on with the lift? I'm in my boat and nothing's happening." So eventually they went up to the shed on the top where he was, and he was absolutely paralytic, laid out unconscious on the floor.
Well, you've got to have a hobby.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Now, if it had been 10 bob a unit, they couldn't have afforded it.
And actually, Waterways reacted very badly to it because they sacked him on the spot, which sounds like it may have been the right thing to do, but under the circumstances, he was absolutely worked to death, and people just kept giving him a drink, and all that. But
the thing's all been renovated now, of course.
Well, it was renovated then as well.
Was that post-renovation?
It was renovated in the 70s at a cost of £25,000, which at that time was how much it cost to build originally.
Right. Well, when it was... They got lottery money, didn't they, a few years back?
Well, that's this more recent renovation. Yeah.
And it looks fantastic. It looks brand spanking new and all the rest of it. Whether indeed it works properly, I'm sure it does. And whether it lobs great gobs of
I don't know about the grease these days.
No.
They might well have, the health and safety PC brigade might have been along and said you'll have to guard that and all sorts of...
They're boring beggars, them, aren't they?
Right, second thing, if you've got time.
Yep.
Your bargain paving.
Yes.
Right, well... We built a new house for ourselves adjacent to our old one, actually. It was basically in a big garden that we had, so we got planning on part of the garden further down the lane. Anyway, we built this house. But we bought a lot of stuff in, obviously, to build it. And one of the items was, I won't say the manufacturer, but there were reconstituted stone sills to go under each window.
Yeah.
To make it all look very fancy.
I know the sort, yes.
Yeah. And so we looked around at lots of them, and they were ordered from a major manufacturer. Everybody would know the name if I said it, but I won't. And they do make some very nice stuff. Anyway, they were ordered at a cost, I think it was about 1,400 quid. 6 weeks later when they came, about a third of them weren't quite right. They hadn't been cast properly, and the edges were a little bit crumbly on about a third of them.
Yeah.
So, of course, I rang them up and I said, not happy with this. Because once they're built in, you'd have a lot of expense taking them out later if there was a problem with them. Anyway, they said, oh, right, no problem, we'll remake those. I said, no, hang on, I want the whole lot remaking, otherwise we'll have some difference in colours.
Yeah, of course they will.
So they agreed to that and did them. And we waited another 6 weeks, and they came, and about 20% of those weren't right.
Oh, my God.
So I got back onto them and ended up speaking to the sales director, and I said, look, this is getting silly now. You can either make these things or not. I know that your other products are very good, but you obviously haven't got this process quite right. And he said, can we have another go? I said, no. I said, I think we better leave it. Send us the money back and we'll forget it, and you can come and pick them up or do what you want. And I said, if you don't want to pay it. But he agreed to that. He said, okay, we'll call it a day. He said, I'm very sorry it's all happened. And we agreed to that. And I said, if you don't want to spare the expense, if you don't want to go to the expense of collecting them, we've got a hole we can tip them in. So he said, okay, let's do that. Simplify the job. So it was all sorted.
And you got on for naught?
Well, let's get to the next bit now. Then I'm lying in bed that night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I thought, I've got 2 sets of these now with, 30% of one lot and 20% of the other. Let's count them in the morning, see if we can make a full set.
See if we make a full set, yeah,
and
absolutely.
me and my middle lad, we did this the next morning, and we made a full set up. And said, right, we took a decision to use them because they were okay. The ones that were good were good. There was no problem with them. It was just, some that had little crumbly edges that weren't finished properly. So we not only used them, we threw away the ones that were crumbly. We tipped them, and we still had about a dozen, I think it was, that were good, that were unused. So we put them on eBay and got. They went cheap, but we got about 100 quid for them.
It's better than a poke in the eye, isn't it?
So
Good on you. We like the tale.
So it was all, it all ended nicely, really.
And is the firm still going, just as a matter of interest?
Very big company.
No, well, we've all guessed. Have a good one, Laurie.
All right.
Cheers, mate. 0161 228 2255. Stuff sold from boats. Brian says there's a restaurant boat near Marple. Alan, a few years ago, we had barges selling homemade treacle toffee and other bonfire night food to fund the boat lift. It's only up the road from me, says Ian. And Russ in Lee, with all this trouble about the sale of alcohol and all the rest of it, why not just simply raise the age at which one can purchase alcohol to 21? On the face of it, that seems eminently sensible, but imagine saying to a soldier returning from Iraq, no, you can't go for a pint with your dad. Sorry, you're not old enough. Yes, I know you've had your legs shot off on behalf of your country, but frankly, you're still not old enough. So it would be tricky, wouldn't it? If a good idea. What do you think? Raise the age to 21. There are quite a few boats selling stuff, says Jennifer. A live-on boater. Yeah, you can get greeting cards, you can get paintings, canalware, hand-spun cashmere. Dear God, how posh are you going to get? That's fantastic. Hand-spun cashmere. I love it. 0161 228 2255. Alan, I could be mistaken, but at a trial in a court of law, it appears to be customary that the prosecution counsel presents their case before the defence. If this is so, what is the reason for this? And if not, how is it decided who goes first? Perhaps it's because the most recently submitted evidence will be fresher in the minds of the jury, giving the defendant a better chance of a fair trial. No, the reason is much more prosaic than that. The job of the prosecution in a trial is to prove its case. The defence has to do nothing. They have nothing to do. So the prosecution delivers its case, and then the defence is entitled to challenge that presentation, if you like, that evidence. So that's why it goes that way, because if the defendant went first, what would he be defending against? There is no allegation before him, or at least no evidence before him. So the prosecution says to the jury, we believe that man in the dock committed this crime, and here is the evidence that led us to that belief. The defendant then says, I wasn't where you say I was somewhere else. Now, in order to keep it fair, the defence is then entitled to challenge, cross-examine, the evidence and the presentations of the defence. But it starts with the defence making its case. A number of times I represented people in industrial tribunals, and I can remember on one occasion, at the end of the evidence of the prosecution, if you like. Now, it's not called prosecution and defence in the court, but in the tribunal, but it's the same principle. And when the employer's side had submitted their case and made their case, and I'd asked them a few questions and the like, I then turned to the panel, the tribunal, and said, he hasn't proven his case. My client has nothing to do. The case is not proven. And we won't bother with the rest of it, or at least you move for that. You ask the tribunal chairman to dismiss the case on the grounds that not enough evidence has been presented to prove it. So that was that, and the case was chucked out. Now, that doesn't often happen, but it can happen from time to time, and even happens in the criminal court. So that's why the defence goes last. It's because the defence has nothing to defend. It's a bit like the goalkeeper jumping before the ball is kicked. There really isn't much point. He doesn't know where to jump. So at the penalty, that well, in any circumstance, there wouldn't be much point in the goalie jumping to the left unless the ball was going to the left. So that's the best analogy I can come up with. A 3-litre bottle of strong cider contains 23 units of alcohol, says Peter in Bolton. Surely not. That would make it £12.50, wouldn't it? Well, that'd sure as hell stop the kids from drinking it, wouldn't it? 0161 228 2255. Dr. Doolittle, so that's the signature on the email, I'm afraid, says, read your story last week about not asking for large eggs because it hurts the chicken's bum, or the part of the back end of the chicken the egg comes out of. Who's going to tell the chickens not to lay big eggs? Well, first of all, I'll tell you, I once asked my dad, why did the milkman, these were the old days, why did the milkman deliver on Christmas Day? I was only about 8. Why don't they give the milkman Christmas Day off and deliver twice as much milk on Christmas Eve? And he said, who's going to tell the cows to deliver twice as much milk the day before? Which was a jolly good answer. However, well, he's a bit of a smart aleck, my dad. A jolly good answer. It's slightly different with the chicken, because when you say who's going to tell the chickens not to lay big eggs, the answer is the farmer, because the size of the egg. Look, don't, please. I know I'm not. I've never worked on a farm. Well, I did a bit of spud picking. I don't think that counts. But this is what I read. The size of the egg is related, for want of a better term, to the amount of protein in the diet. Now, chickens don't normally get a lot of protein. They just get enough because they have to go foraging. But, of course, when we're doing chickens on farms, then they get a lot more protein because they have a controlled diet, so you end up with bigger eggs. So that's it. So all they would do, if they couldn't sell the big eggs, they would merely give them less protein. They'd be perfectly able to produce eggs. They would just be smaller ones. So the answer to your question, who will tell the chicken, actually has an answer, and that is the farmer, who controls their feeding regime. No, I didn't say it was an interesting answer. I made no attempt to suggest it was interesting. I won't be accused like this. I merely said that's the answer. Obson says you can take it or leave it, and I'm with Obson. 161 228 2255. You got something to say, feel free. Just pick up your phone and say it. Also, of course, Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And the text number is 07786 206 951. Somebody suggested earlier that Gordon Brown, frankly, ought to hold up his hand and say, yeah, I made a complete and utter pig's ear of it. That was the suggestion in an email. Well, you're not the first person to suggest it. And now, the Godbotherers have got their head into it. Oh, yes. In the Express today, the reason it keeps sounding funny is because I'm moving my head to find paper. In the Express today, now we've already had David Cameron, leader of Her Majesty's Opposition, leader of the Conservative Party, saying, I'm very, very sorry, we took our eye off the ball that he was playing with, and we didn't do a proper job of dealing with the financial crisis. We should have been pointing fingers a lot earlier than we were. That's in précis and distillation, what he said. So David Cameron has said sorry for, well, just for that, really, for taking his eye off the ball. Gordon Brown still has not. Daily Express today, a former Archbishop of Canterbury yesterday became the latest figure to urge Gordon Brown to say sorry for his part in the recession. The Prime Minister has repeatedly refused to admit that mistakes made when he was Chancellor for 10 years contributed to making Britain vulnerable to the downturn. Instead, he preferred to insist that it is a global crisis which started in America, although I don't remember him shouting that when he was in the Houses of Congress when in the United States. But never mind, you don't go over there and shout that, do you? Lord Carey, former head of the Anglican Church, said it would be a sign of strength for Mr. Brown to show some humility. The move would not bring back people's jobs or savings, but it would be a refreshing and much overdue acknowledgement of some responsibility for the state we are in. David Cameron, the former primate praised Conservative leader David Cameron's encouraging acknowledgement of his own party's failure to spot the warning signs of the recession. So, should he? What was the point? The issue, I suppose, is all political. I'm not suggesting that Lord Carey, former Archbishop of Canterbury, is party political, but it's political nonetheless. If Gordon Brown now said he was sorry, then obviously people would say, yeah, right, of course he's sorry. He's saying he's sorry because everybody's telling him he's got to. So he can't not say it. So that's what would happen. Had he said it at the beginning, it would have been a different kettle of fish. But no. If he now said, oh, all right, you win, I'm sorry, then fine. All right, you win, I'm sorry. It's not really an apology, is it? It's just, well, that's how it is. It happened. Yeah, boo. Everybody's whinging, so OK, I'm sorry. That's not really what an apology is about, is it? So would there be any point in such a statement? I suspect not. But what do you think? Is there any merit in an apology? I mean, we've had all sorts, haven't we? We've had Germany apologising to all the people they were appalling to. We've had all sorts of individuals saying, we are sorry. We've even had the ludicrous situation where, on behalf of the United Kingdom, somebody said sorry for the slave trade 2 centuries ago. We're awfully sorry. Oh, well, that's all right then. That's all right that you grabbed my ancestors from their homes, you put them into ships and had 1/10 of them die on the way, and then you sold them into slavery in a foreign land. Well, at least you've said you're sorry. I mean, that's what counts, isn't it? Ludicrous. Is there any merit in the apology? And if so, what? 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And the text number 07786 206 951. 20 to 1 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Mark Edwards.
A couple from Partington whose two sons were killed by a drink driver have been told they can't adopt because they're still grieving. Amanda and Phil Peake lost their sons when their car was hit by the footballer Lee McCormick on the M6 last June. A suspected gas explosion at a house in Bolton this morning was so loud that neighbours say they thought a plane had crashed into it. It happened just after 7 o'clock on Green Lane. No one was seriously injured. And the Tory leader David Cameron has called for the TV licence fee to be frozen. Manchester's weather, a bright afternoon, dry too, with temperatures up to about 14 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
In the city centre of Manchester, roadworks continue to affect traffic on Portland Street with a lane closure heading in towards the city from Minshall Street through to Chorlton Street. At Golborne, the East Lancs Road, the A580 has a lane closure and a 30 miles an hour limit for roadworks at the junction of Newton Road. And Chapel Road in Alderley Edge is still closed as works continue between the junctions of Macclesfield Road and Trafford Road. Diversions are in place for you to follow. Got no problems to report to you on the trains at the moment. Anything else you spot, do give us a quick call on 0161 244 4951. I'm Jane Grindell.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Bill Rice.
Good afternoon. West Ham and Sheffield United have reached an out-of-court settlement over the long-running Carlos Tevez saga. United had argued that Tevez was ineligible to play when he helped West Ham achieve Premier League survival back in 2007, and an independent hearing ruled in favour of the Blades' claim for compensation. A figure has not been disclosed, but it's understood to be in the region of £15 million and will be paid in instalments. Joe Royle will be unveiled as Oldham Athletics manager this afternoon, 14 years after he was last in charge of the club. The former Latics and Manchester City boss has been put in charge until the end of the season after John Sheridan was sacked as manager yesterday. Oldham's managing director, Simon Corney, feels the players let Sheridan down, but dismisses suggestions that he'd lost the dressing room.
I don't think so. You know, with football players, you can only do so much. You can prepare them as best you can, but when they go out onto the field, it's up to them. And if they're not prepared to put in 100% every time, you're going to have losses which you shouldn't deserve as a team. If they don't look after themselves outside of football, they're not going to give their all. It doesn't matter who you are and how good you think you are.
Mark Hughes admits that his Manchester City side struggled to compete with Chelsea yesterday after they slipped to their 9th away league defeat of the season.
You go up against a side such as Chelsea and you have to be dynamic and you have to be able to have a physical presence and drive the game, but we didn't really have that in our play. Once we went behind it, we found it very difficult to really get behind Chelsea and cause them enough problems in the attacking third.
Michael Essien's first-half goal preserved Gus Hiddink's winning start as Chelsea boss, and it's moved them within 4 points of league leaders Manchester United. Deco, though, could miss the rest of the season after suffering a recurrence of a hamstring injury. The Bolton boss, Gary Megson, says that his players need to look at themselves after another disappointing defeat over the weekend. They lost 3-1 at home to Fulham, and Megson says they need a response.
We've got to get a response because, you know, the way that we've played, just purely and simply by virtue of that fact, there needs to be a response. You know, you can't expect to be coming in and paid really good money and then turning out that kind of stuff. And, you know, we're all culpable.
Oldham's Neil Eardley and the Stockport goalkeeper Owain Von Williams have been included in the Wales squad for their upcoming World Cup qualifiers against Finland and Germany. The England manager Martin Johnson says there's definite room for improvement after their 34-10 win over France at Twickenham. Sale's Mark Cueto was one of England's try-scorers in the first half as they crossed the line 5 times. That's the only good news for Sale, though, as they lost 7 players to injury, as well as the game 38-3 at Northampton Saints on Saturday. Their director of rugby, Kingsley Jones, described it as his darkest day as a coach or player after losing the game and several key squad members, including Mark Jones, who ruptured a knee ligament. Oldham coach Tony Benson says he was always confident they'd get their Rugby League Championship 1 campaign off to a winning start. They had to come from 14 points behind to beat Blackpool, though, 36-18 at Boundary Park.
I wasn't panicking half time. I don't think any of the players were either. We felt we could come back into it if we just got back to our game. And as soon as we did that, we were fine. I was disappointed in how we responded to the pressure in the first half. But once we got back to our game second half, we wore them down a bit and then, played like we can in the last 20, which I was really happy with.
A last-minute drop goal from Martin Ridyard gave Lee victory at Sheffield by 23 points to 22. There are fresh doubts over the future of the Indian Premier League, with less than a month to go before the tournament's due to start. A second revised fixture list has now been rejected by the government, who are concerned about security at the event, which clashes with India's general elections. And Mark Cavendish is a surprise inclusion in the Great Britain squad for next week's Track Cycling World Championships in Poland. Cavendish said that he wouldn't race on the track again after being the only squad member to miss a medal in Beijing, but the squad is now without the injured trio of Sir Chris Hoy, Bradley Wiggins and Rebecca Romero. Britain won 9 gold and 2 silvers in Manchester last year, with Wiggins taking 3 titles. Hoy, Romero and Pendleton won 2 each.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
Updates on City in the FA Youth Cup on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, the senior team go for a place in the UEFA Cup quarter-finals. Full match commentary in Manchester Sports, Thursday from 6.
BBC Radio Manchester.
I could have danced all night. I could have danced all night. And still rest for... Are you all right? Good-o. Never mind Gordon Brown. I'm waiting for your much overdue apology for what we've had to endure over the years. Yeah, don't hold your breath. The case, this is Karen in Haywood, the case for charging alcohol at a cost per unit would throw the industry into chaos. Who decided what a unit was and how many units were safe in the first place? Does this mean that VAT and duty would be increased proportionately too? I might take more notice of a government making such suggestions if they were to take the initiative and reduce the number of subsidised bars in the Houses of Parliament, or even remove these subsidies altogether. There can't be many other organisations that have the ability to sell alcohol to employees during working hours. Oops, they're not employees, are they? Do as I say, not as I do, the usual missive of politicians. Throw them all in the river, says Karen in Haywood. Well, it's easy to say throw them all in the river, and it's easy to say do as I say, not do as I do, and all of that. But, Karen, we come back to, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. We have a problem. Now, we can say the MPs are the wrong people to resolve that problem. Of course we can. But frankly, they are the only ones that can. Nobody else can. We can say that if they introduce this ruling, then it would be duplicitous of them to continue getting cheap alcohol at their place of work. Of course we can. The issue isn't whether the MPs are the right people to do it, for they are the only ones. The issue isn't whether they would be duplicitous in doing it, for that is not relevant. We want our streets cleared of drunken hooligans. We want our hospitals cleared of alcohol-related diseases. The man, Liam, whatever his name is, who's promoting this idea, he's the chief medical officer of our country, says that it will save something like £1 billion a year in pointless hospital expenses, but more importantly, in pain and illness for those individuals. So it would save £1 billion a year. That's a lot of money. That's a week's NHS money. Now, that's what it would save. So whether the MPs are the right people, whether the MPs would be duplicitous, it doesn't matter. The issue that counts is, would it diminish the amount of binge drinking, as we now call it? Would it change the fact that an awful lot of young people appear to want to get legless on cheap cider? That's what matters. As for the case of charging alcohol at a cost per unit, it wouldn't throw the industry into chaos. It wouldn't at all. It would change almost nothing other than the price. Who would decide what a unit was? Well, the government. I don't know how they would decide, but a decision would be made. How many units were safe in the first place? They're not talking about safety on this occasion. They're talking about the price per unit. So they would say that's a unit. The minimum price of that is 10 bob. The VAT, well, the VAT would follow the price, because that's what it does. The duty would follow the price, because they are both proportionate matters. So, frankly, those two are slightly red herrings. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but if we say that the only people who can make decisions about our laws are those who are prepared to obey them, I'm afraid we'd be in difficulty. Chris in Atherton. Hiya, Chris.
Hello, Alan, all right?
Not bad, mate. What for you?
You asked the question whether it be right or wrong to say sorry, coupled with the statement that David Cameron came out. I'm not sure about David Cameron, why he should apologise considering he's not in the government. I hope it's not a cynical ploy. I don't know about that, only time will tell. But to me, it's wrong to say sorry if you don't intend then to change what you have made, saying sorry for. In other words, if you cause someone some hurt, or in this case, the recession, say, if then you say, I'm sorry, but when we come out of the recession, you keep the same cycle running, then your sorrow is pointless. But if you're saying you're sorry, and when we come out of this recession, we will then change and have a look at the way how we live, have a look at the way how capitalism is dictated to, and by what it's dictated to, and whether it's morals are thrown into it, whether ethics are thrown into it, or whether we just let rip what we've been going through for all these years. So sorrow must depend on two things. One, you're sorry for it, and two, I will change. I won't do it again. Do you agree with that?
Yes, if one is going to apologise,
that's right.
One ought to apologise for what one has done, and then say, and henceforth, I will attempt not to do it again. That doesn't guarantee that one won't.
No, I know that.
But one ought to say henceforth.
You can try.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try not to do it again.
That's right.
But even then, I have to wonder whether there's any merit in it, because I don't know that one ought to apologise for something that one didn't do on purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yes, I agree with that. That's why Gordon Brown, I think, doesn't apologise, because he blames the world banking system, doesn't he? And especially the Yankee system.
Well,
he blamed America. He said America started it, didn't he?
He does, yes.
Yeah.
Well, he says it started in America. Yeah.
That's right. So he's really, in that sense, if he's correct, and I'm not saying he is, I don't know. I mean, I'm a Labour voter, but I don't know whether he's correct or not. But if he is, he has nothing to apologise for. I accept that. You agree with that, would you?
I would say slightly different to that, but almost agreement. You know, I have a natural aversion to agree with anyone. But almost agreement in that if one does something on purpose,
right,
and takes a risk, as it were,
yes.
and the risk doesn't come off, then yes, you can say, well, okay, I'm sorry. I did this, it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You can say sorry for that.
That's right.
If one does something on purpose, knowing that it will cause harm, I don't know the merit of the apology.
No, I would agree with that, because they had no intention other than to do what they were doing and sod everybody else, as it were, didn't they?
Absolutely so.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like you, I'm not suggesting what Brown did. But
I'm just putting it in layman's terms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
if one takes a course of action and the outcome of that is almost inevitable, there's no point apologising for that course of action or the result. That is what you did. If one is doing one's best,
that's right.
Equally, there is no point apologising, because one can only ever do one's best.
That's right.
I was doing my best. Yes, I made wrong decisions, but you only get two goes. It's like asking Blair to apologise for the Iraq War.
That's right.
No point.
No.
Put in the same position, he would make the same decision. Because he thinks the decision was right.
Correct. Absolutely.
So there's no point apologising. Why would you apologise?
That's right. That's all you can do.
Exactly.
That's all you can do in life, isn't it? You make your decisions, you stick by it, and if you're wrong, you say, I'm sorry, but I won't do it again. But then again, you'd have to say, if somebody asked you, well, would you have done that? Say, yeah, because I didn't know at that point what was going to happen.
Well, yeah.
You can't look at it with hindsight, can you?
Not really.
The other thing I'd like to say, do you remember, I remember last week you was on about this Christie's Hospital and the money that they've invested in Iceland.
The 6 million gamble.
Yeah, now I listened to you on Saturday morning, and I agree with what you said. It's not looking at this with hindsight. I think they were greedy. They shouldn't have gambled with people's money like that, because it was money given as a charity. They should have been more astute and put that money into something which they knew couldn't failed and might not have given them as big a return, but I think they were totally wrong to gamble like they did. And you've said in the past, I've heard you say, they've been like bookies. That's what they've actually been doing, putting bets on, haven't they?
Yeah.
And they've failed.
The problem with the particular Christie thing is that they take, like we all have to, they took advice off the money men.
Yeah.
And the money men, of course, we know, are heartless cretins.
Well, exactly.
So taking that, but there's nobody else to get advice off.
No, I know there's not.
That's the great
But
difficulty.
I always think, and I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but your common sense usually, something clicks inside your brain, you think, that doesn't sound right, that doesn't sound logical.
Well, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
you said, I better take some more advice of you, because it sounds too easy. That's how I look at life anyway. Somebody tells me they're going to make me a lot of money, I think, hang on, there's something not right here.
Well, the good news is, I think I read in the paper last week that Berry, who lost a big chunk of money in the BCCI, was it called, all those years ago? Apparently they're going to get a good chunk of that back,
Well,
so that's nice.
That is nice, yeah.
I wonder if the rates will go down. You have a guess. Have a good day, Chris.
Okay, thank you,
Cheers,
Alan,
mate.
bye.
0161228 2255. Peter in Hyde with you shortly.
BBC iPlayer is great. Evidently, my persuasive skills aren't. Unlike the advertising guys in Mad Men, I couldn't convince my wife that I have to watch it instead of going for dinner with Sue and Bob, who we don't even like. Thankfully, I can watch it when I come home on BBC iPlayer. Still have to go out with Sue and Bob, though.
Don't miss the drama. Catch up on TV and radio programmes on your computer with BBC iPlayer. Making the unmissable unmissable. Go to bbc.co.uk/iPlayer.
A very good day to you. How are you? Peter in Hyde. Hiya, Peter.
Hello, Alan. There's a law in this country, as far as I believe, it's called Discrimination Act.
Yeah.
How far does that Discrimination Act go?
Well, it depends on which one you're talking about.
Well, I'm talking about, I don't know, maybe it's actually, but I'm trying to get through that the people, the men, women and children in England have to pay for the prescriptions. Scotland, they don't, and Wales, they don't. Are we all British, or is the British Isles split up in triple P, say, well, you don't pay, I don't pay, and you don't pay? We're all British. So where does the Discrimination Act start and where does it finish?
Well, there is no Fiscal Discrimination Act. That's why I asked you what kind of discrimination you...
Well, as opposed to the government, there's a Discrimination Act, isn't there?
Well, there are a number of Discrimination Acts. Discrimination in our society is not illegal. It's not against the law to discriminate, except in specific positions where specific legislation has been written. I'll give you a very, very simple example of why. When you're driving along the road and you come to a T-junction, to turn in either direction is to discriminate against the other direction. That is discrimination. So discrimination is not illegal. To choose to use one kind of butter than another kind of butter is discrimination. It's not illegal. It's called choice. As long as there is choice, there is discrimination. There are certain discriminations which are against the law. Racial discrimination in most cases. Religious discrimination in some cases. Age discrimination has just been rendered acceptable by the European Parliament. Rendered acceptable. The British wanted to introduce age discrimination legislation. They were told they couldn't. And what's the other one? Sex discrimination, of course. So that there's even a law that prohibits you from discriminating as an employer against those who choose to be members of trade unions.
Oh, I know that.
So but there are most of the time. In almost, other than those I've just outlined, in almost every single circumstance, it is perfectly legal to discriminate. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to marry anybody.
No.
Because you'd have to pick one, and we tend to keep it to one. You'd have to pick one rather than another.
But is the British people, now you've explained that, is the British people keeping Ireland, keeping Scotland and keeping Wales, because... They all get the money at the end of the day from Westminster.
Indeed they do.
Don't they?
And
so therefore we are discriminated.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, aren't we? In one respect we are discriminated.
Well, in many, many respects, yes,
Mr.
we
Blair
are.
wants to get his act together, don't he?
It's probably a bit late for him, but if anyone was going to, Mr. Brown might be.
Well, Mr. Brown should say.
There's been a change. The Labour Party discriminated. They changed. Good on you. Thank you very much, Peter.
Come on, you ready?
kids.
Hey, what about you Blues?
Yeah, well, fair enough. We want to know who you support.
But more importantly, why?
Eamon and Diane.
Tomorrow from 6.
So there. Well, I support Warrington, but it's getting harder. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. Text number, of course, 07786 206 951. Have a say.
95.1 FM.
DAB Digital Radio.
And the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, a Partington couple's grief stops them from adopting, and a family's narrow escape after a gas explosion in Bolton.
West Ham and Sheffield United settle their dispute over Tevez.
It's dry and bright with hazy sunny spells and temperatures peaking at a high of 14 Celsius.
Heavy traffic in Worsley following an earlier accident on Walkden Road at the junction of Lumber Lane, and still delays due to roadworks on Pollard Street at Ancoats.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Edwardson. A couple from Partington whose two sons were killed by a drink driver have been told they can't adopt because they're still grieving. 8-year-old Ben and 10-year-old Aaron Peake died when the footballer Luke McCormick crashed into their car on the M6 last June. Their mother Amanda, who's had a hysterectomy and can't have more children, says it's not fair they're not allowed to adopt.
They make it very, very difficult, and I understand why people that go in for adoptions turn around and say, I don't want to do it no more, because you make it so hard. Grieving for my birth children is still going to be grieving, whether it's now or 50 years from now. It's not going to go away.
The neighbours described how he and his son rescued a family following an explosion that ripped through a house in Bolton this morning. It happened just after 7 o'clock on Green Lane in Great Lever. Sean McGrath heard the blast and arrived to find a mother and her two young children screaming at the bedroom window.
Just try to get them out. Just basically try to assess him whether I could get up the stairs or not to get him down the stairs. But then obviously I realised I couldn't, and just basically told him, my son had told him to drop the children down, and then I told him to jump.
5 people have been arrested in raids in Scotland this morning in connection with the violence that followed last year's UEFA Cup final in Manchester. Police are bringing the men to Greater Manchester this afternoon for questioning. An estimated 150,000 Rangers fans travelled to the city for the match against Zenit St Petersburg, but rioting broke out after one of the big screens showing the game failed. The Chief Medical Officer for England, Sir Liam Donaldson's defended his call for there to be a minimum price for alcohol of about 50 pence per unit. It's one of a range of measures he believes could be used to tackle excessive drinking, particularly amongst the young. Sir Liam said it would lead to almost 100,000 fewer hospital admissions every year. He insisted that sensible drinkers wouldn't be penalised.
The research shows that this would disproportionately affect heavy and dangerous drinkers. Moderate drinkers would perhaps pay another £1 a month for their drink, but heavy drinkers would pay a lot more, and the research suggests that it would reduce heavy drinking, and that would be very good news both for the health of the individuals but also for society as a whole.
The trials opened in Austria of the man accused of keeping his daughter in a cellar beneath their home for nearly a quarter of a century and fathering 7 children with her. Josef Fritzl has pleaded guilty to incest and false imprisonment, but he denied other charges, including the murder of one of the children who died soon after being born. 3 Greater Manchester MPs have joined dozens of others in calling for a freeze in the television licence for the coming year. Next month, the annual cost of a colour licence will rise to £142.50. That's an increase of £3. Tony Lloyd, Jim Dobbin and David Crosby have signed a Commons motion demanding the rise be halted because of the recession. And booking the credit crunch, Mere Golf and Country Club in Cheshire have been granted planning permission to build a hotel on their site. Plans for an 86-bedroom facility include a conversion of a Grade 2 listed stable block that will be built alongside the existing buildings. The clubs say they hope the facilities will help to attract an even bigger golfing tournament to the northwest.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Mark Elliott.
Good afternoon, I'm Bill Rice. The long-running Carlos Tevez saga appears to be over after West Ham and Sheffield United confirmed they've settled their dispute. The amount of the out-of-court settlement hasn't been disclosed, but it is understood to be around £15 million payable in instalments. Joe Royle will be unveiled at Oldham Athletic in an hour's time as boss until the end of the season. The former Latics and Manchester City manager will take the reins at Boundary Park after the sacking of John Sheridan. There are fresh doubts over the future of the Indian Premier League, with less than a month to go before the tournament's due to start. A second revised fixture list has been rejected by the government, who are concerned about security as the event clashes with India's general elections. And Mark Cavendish is a surprise inclusion in the Great Britain squad for next month's Track Cycling World Championships in Poland. Sir Chris Hoy, Bradley Wiggins and Rebecca Romero, who all won medals in Manchester last year, are all out injured.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather.
Well, it's a beautiful afternoon, dry and bright with sunny spells, which could be a bit hazy at times because of high clouds. And it does feel a little bit fresh out there as well because we've got light winds blowing in from the west. But temperatures are the best we've seen in ages, peaking at a high of 14 Celsius.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
I don't know. What are we talking about today? We're talking about the meaning of or the origins of the phrase kangaroo court. We're talking about whether Sir Liam Donaldson is correct in his suggestion that we should pay a minimum of 50 pence per unit of alcohol in whatever form we purchase it. And that's going down awfully well. Yeah. And we're talking about the value or otherwise of an apology. When is it right to apologise, when is it not? David Cameron has apologised because the Tories didn't spot the looming financial crisis. Gordon Brown has not apologised because he says no one spotted it. It was them crooked Yanks. And the former Archbishop of Canterbury said he should apologise. Something about sinners doing repentance and eye of a needle or something, I can't remember. Anyway, that was your man Carey. So we can talk about anything else, but those are the things that have caught people's attention, it would seem. And listen to this on the subject of alcohol. Steve in Wiggins says, on average, I drink, this is him, 350 units of alcohol a week. Now, how much is that? How much is that? If a glass of wine, a large glass of wine, is 2 units, then surely, is that you drinking, how much is that? God almighty. 2, so that would be 14 units if you had a glass of wine, a large glass of wine every night, 14 units. You divide 350 by 14, that is a lot of alcohol being shifted. Does a tanker come your house? Or am I doing my sums wrong, which would not be the first time? But that's rather... Is that a lot? It sounds like a lot, but I'm working on the basis... it is, I thought it was. I'm working on the basis that how much booze would you have to drink to have 350 units a week? Right. Large glass of wine is 2. 350 a week, that's what? 50 a day, isn't it? Is it? That's 50 a day. So that would be 25 large glasses of wine a day. 4 bottles of wine a day? Yeah, well, never mind. That's what he says. Anyway, this is the full text, because I was just doing the arithmetic there, but he says, on average, I drink 350 units of alcohol per week. I don't cause any trouble to anyone when I've had a drink. I'm 45, by the way. Why should I end up bankrupt or teetotal just because some young scrote who shouldn't have been sold the beer in the first place can't handle their ale? That's Steve in Wigan. I can see the principle of your argument, and I'm surprised you stood up, or even able to. Sounds quite a lot of booze, does that? But what do I know? What do I know? Not a great deal, it seems. Marion says, why do the powers that be always think that if you charge more for something, people will stop buying it? My local shop has a notice concerning the selling of alcohol saying, if you look under 25 years old, don't be offended if we ask for identification. The feral children still roam the streets well into the early morning. They're just not drunk now. And more pubs still serve customers from 18 years old, so will this mean there will be more fights and brawls in pubs if they make it cheaper to buy booze there than the off-licence? Okay. 01612282255 if you've something you wish to comment on that. What do you think of the idea of a minimum unit price for alcohol? Steve says, I don't see how the proposed minimum price per unit of alcohol would have the desired effect of reducing drinking-related trouble or illness. The data out there says that our town and city centres are quickly becoming no-go areas because of drink-related violence and antisocial behaviour. I believe that this, fuelled by the drinks promotions laid on in bars, pubs and clubs. As you said earlier, the price you pay in a pub or bar won't change. So how is that combating the drink-related issues? Yet again, it seems that those of us who like to have a social drink at home with friends will suffer. For example, a litre bottle of supermarket brand vodka now costs approximately £10. At 50p per unit, that would push the price up to £20. Does the 50p include VAT? If not, then it'll cost even more. In the meantime, those out in pubs and bars would probably see no rises in the prices they pay. As for young people buying alcohol in shops, make it mandatory to have some kind of ID with date of birth. In certain states in the US, you cannot purchase alcohol without ID. I recently was asked for ID whilst in the States, and I'm at least 20 years over the age needed to purchase alcohol there. I was told categorically that no ID meant no sale. Let's have it here and make sure it's policed. Well, that would mean the introduction, not only the introduction of identity card, but the compulsory introduction of rules making you carry it. 01612282255. Noel in Eccles with you shortly.
Eamon and Diane.
It's about fun.
What are you scared of? Balloons?
I'm scared of balloons.
I'm scared of balloons. They're very unpredictable, Eamon. They can bounce in your face.
Yeah, that's the unpredictability of it you don't like, isn't it? Me?
Yeah, very unpredictable.
Eamon and Diane.
It's about Manchester.
One of our callers this morning said they heard a siren going off across Manchester. You haven't got any idea what that would be?
I'll make some inquiries.
Are you assisting us with our inquiries?
How about that? I'm assisting you with your inquiries. You know, this really is an advancement in technology, isn't it?
It's about Eamon and Diane.
Give it a try.
Eamon O'Neill, Diane Osprey.
Tomorrow morning from 6.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Yeah, very good day to you. How are you? Noel in Eccles. Hiya, Noel.
Hi, Alan.
What have you got?
Just that you were saying about that bloke drinking 50 units.
350? 50 a day?
I'm awake. 50 a day, yeah. Well, well, hang on. I mean, I know you don't drink a lot. You imbibe moderately.
Very, very, very moderately. About twice a year, I think. Go on.
Well, it's fair enough. But your dad will tell you, I mean, ex-squad and all that. But, I mean, a lot of beers now, you'd say on the back of the can or the bottle what units they are. Yeah. And if you say a can of Stella, and I'm saying advertised, I'm just saying it's...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Go on, Stella. I know about Stella.
Right. There's about 4.6 units in that.
In a can of Stella?
In a can of Stella.
Wow.
Now, I have a friend who... Oh, well,
but okay, well, let's do that. Stella, can of Stella, 4 units.
Yeah,
and he's getting... well, you're talking 12, very nearly. But isn't that a lot?
So, say that to a docker or a miner when he's come off shift.
Well, we haven't got either of them. We don't.
But I'm just saying,
none of those two professions exist.
I mean, I know a lot of lads who go out on a Friday night and 10 pints is nothing.
No.
Yeah.
How?
Alan, you need to go. Have a talk to your dad about lads drinking.
Well,
education is lacking here.
I don't think my dad goes out and drinks 10 pints.
No,
I don't think he did when he could afford it, which was probably never. People don't really.
Really?
I live in a dream world. I do.
Really?
But okay. If we say that about Saturday night, maybe throw in Friday night as well. Nobody does that on a Monday night and a Tuesday night and a Wednesday night and a Thursday night, do they?
I wouldn't have thought so, but you don't know.
But he claimed it's not just 50 units in a night. It was 350 units in a week.
Yes.
Now that's on our simple and not very good maths. 12 cans of Stella per 24-hour period.
Yeah. Well, he might not have that. He might go on shorts.
Well, whatever. It's still that
Alan,
it's still a lot of alcohol.
What you're not grasping, Alan, is right. These units that they're talking about, or he's talking about, depending on the actual brew, depends on how many units.
Mm.
The same bottle of beer on a different brand, one can have 1.4 units. And one can have...
Well, yes, I am aware. Even as a non-user, I'm aware that, yes, you can do that.
And it's not on the strength.
Well, no, it's... Well, it is and it isn't it? It's about how much alcohol you're going to consume in that time. I mean, the unit of alcohol was actually invented. I think it was not Alcoholics Anonymous, but one of those organisations that's dead against alcohol. And they just invented it. And frankly... When they invented it, they got their figures all cockeyed because they had to change them about 5 years later and admit they'd been talking bullwhatsits for days.
Yeah.
But anyway, there we are. You stunned me with that. I can't believe. Well, I have to believe, but I find it uncomfortable to know that somebody is consuming 350 units of alcohol, the equivalent of 10 cans of Stella per day.
Yeah,
extraordinary.
I mean, if you get one of those large bottles of cheap cider. Yeah?
Yeah.
Then you could be talking more.
Well, yes, I can see that. I mean, you can buy a keg, can't you? You can go in a pub or an off-licence and buy a keg like they have, but you do that for a party. You won't have it for you every night.
What do you call... hang on, what do you call a keg?
Oh, here we go. Well, yes, a barrel. One of them little aluminium barrel fingers. You can go and buy one of those.
Yeah, that's a 9 gallon.
Right,
His proper term is a firkin.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like... Is that because it's quite a firkin lot to drink on your own?
Yeah, it could be,
anyway, so they go and get a firkin, and you can go and buy a firkin, but one would assume you're not drinking all that. You're going to let somebody else have a glass.
Yeah, you're sharing that one.
Yeah, but 10 cans of Stella in a day, I find that stunning.
Yeah, I know lads who can do it, and spread across an age group.
Extraordinary. Well, Noel, you've opened my eyes.
Okay.
Have a good day. 01612 2282255. Steve in Wigan says 350 units. It usually consists of 72 cans of special brew and a bottle of vodka. And I've never missed a day's work off sick in the 29 years that I've been at work. I don't know whether you want a round of applause or a big slap, but Steve, thank you for the further information. On the ramifications of imposing a minimum price on alcohol, says a texter, it could be that alcoholics that can't really afford the higher price will desperately turn to crime in order to fund their habit, similar to heroin and cocaine addicts, possibly. Alan, I only drink 1935 Dom Perignon vintage champagne. It cost me £1,800 a bottle. Bring on the 50 pence a unit idea, it'll only cost £6 then. Derek in Lee. Derek, you mischievous swine. It's not 50 pence per unit. It is a minimum of 50 pence a unit. I suspect the Dom Perignon will continue at the same price, but good luck to you. There are two apologies, says Mike. One is the acknowledgement of responsibility. So you say, yes, it was my fault, and I am sorry. The other is merely a regret of the occurrence of an event without responsibility. I'm sorry that I'm sorry it's raining. Well, you can't take responsibility for that kind of thing, unless you die in Uxbury, and then clearly it's your fault. Bob, in Bury. Hiya, Bob.
Hi, Alan. It's nice to talk to you again.
And you, sir.
Not so bad, not so bad. Hey, it's about this. It won't work, putting the price up.
Well, it's only putting the price at the cheap end up. But yes.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, my family, there's 3 of us. We have probably 5 bottles of wine a week of meals.
Yeah.
Which is going to put it up. The people that should be...
Well, will it? Well, let's just look at that first of all. Will it put it up? A bottle of wine, how many units are in a bottle of wine? Do you know?
I don't know.
And it probably varies from wine to wine.
Yeah.
But if we said there are 5 units in a bottle of wine, that would mean that bottle of wine minimum price would be £2.50.
Yeah, but that's £2.50 on top of the price.
No, that's it, you see. That's what people... a number of people have made come to the same conclusion as you. It's not an addition onto the price. It's not even a charge for the alcohol. It's a case of the price will be a minimum of 50 pence per unit. So a bottle of wine with 5 units would cost a minimum of £2.50.
Yeah,
so if it was currently on sale at £1.99, it would then be on sale at £2.50. If it's already on sale at £2.51, its price won't change.
Yeah, that I'll accept then.
Okay.
I haven't done my maths on it, I must admit. But I'm absolutely incensed that the people that should be punished, first and foremost, for the underage drinkers, are the parents. They should be fined. And on subsequent offences, they should be fined even more until they put on a curfew on the parents and the children. They're the offenders. You know, it's like people that smoke. They go to a pub. Well, they don't now because, they've got to sit outside. You know, people are being penalised for what they do. It's not the offenders.
All right, so I know what you mean. The people who ordinarily and peacefully go about their business are going to have to pay more just because a lot of scallies are getting it cheap and doing harm.
Yeah, that's correct.
Good on you, mate.
You know, why not hit the parents and the children?
Well, I'm sure...
Put on if need be.
And put what on? Put what?
Asbos on them.
Put asbos on them. All right. I don't know how much they bring in, but OK, good on you, mate. 0161228 2255. How say you? 1:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Alexia O'Connor.
A couple from Partington whose 2 sons were killed by a drunk driver have been told they can't adopt because they're still grieving. Amanda and Phil Peake lost their sons when their car was hit by the footballer Luke McCormick on the N6 last June. The United States has welcomed the reinstatement of Pakistan's most senior judge. The reappointment of Iftikhar Chowdhury after days of opposition protests appears to have diffused a major political crisis in Pakistan. And 5 people have been arrested in raids in Scotland this morning in connection with the violence which followed the UEFA Cup final in Manchester last year. Manchester's weather, bright and dry today with highs of 14 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Still coping fairly well out and about with any accidents that are reported at the moment. The Princess Parkway at Withington still affected by roadworks, so there's a lane closure both ways between the junction of Barlow Moor Road and the junction of Wilbraham Road. Oldham Road at Miles Platting, a contraflow is in place for bridge works between Alan Turing Way and the junction of Grimshaw Lane, and there's still work on the A666 at Bolton on Blackburn Road with temporary traffic lights in place at the junction of Halliwell Road. Trains are moving well at the moment, as are the trams. No problems to report to you there. Anything else you spot, you can update us by calling on 0161 244 4951. I'm Jane Grindell.
With more updates than the other guys.
2020 traffic.
Right, we've got some row here over Stella. I'm expecting a case of Stella to arrive any moment now after this. But Stella is 4.5%, not 4.5 units. You see the complexity of it all already. We're talking about a unit of alcohol, and none of us can quantify it. And as I said, when the health professionals started talking about alcohol units a few years ago, now must be a decade ago, they made a balls of it. They had to re-quantify it later. So we don't really know what a unit is. We know what a percentage is. Stella is 4.5% alcohol, not 4.5 units per can. So says Mike in Davyhulme. Thank you for that. If you're listening, Stella, it's P.O. Box 951, Manchester, M61 SD. No, I don't drink it. Wouldn't drink it, but probably could flog it off on eBay. Oh, another advert. If you're listening, eBay, the address... Never mind. We could be here all day. Your caller is well off. A litre of Stella is about 4 units, making a can about 2. Lawrence in Newton Heath. So there you are. We've not got to the bottom of it, but at least we've got a lot more versions of it, and we'll settle for that. Simon in Haywood. Hiya, Simon.
Hi, Alan. Just a quick thing there. Sort of a pointer. If it comes in a black can, it's bad for you.
Right. So
that's the easy point, the easy way to think about it.
Okay.
If it's in a black can, it's bad for you.
I mean, if it's alcohol and it comes in anything, it's bad for you.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Whatever the colour of the can.
Yeah.
Go on anyway.
You made a point 10 minutes since in response to somebody who texted in that it would. You said it would mean the introduction of ID cards, compulsory ID cards.
The thing that person was talking about, yes.
Yes, it wouldn't.
Go on.
Well, why would it? The only time you would need an ID card is to purchase alcohol. So why not bring in an ID card that permits you to purchase alcohol, so that you cannot purchase alcohol without it? And that goes for new corner shops, for pubs, for even restaurants,
Indeed.
as well as off-licenses.
If I can just spool back to what you said and what I said, you said why not bring in an alcohol purchasing ID card. That is an ID card. That is the introduction of an ID card. And because you couldn't buy alcohol without it, it is the compulsory introduction of ID cards.
True, but it is not compulsory in that it is not mandatory for everybody to have one.
Well,
there are a lot of people, yourself included probably, who don't drink.
Simon, the word that's missing here, and I didn't use, is universal.
Yeah.
I said it would mean the introduction of ID cards. I didn't say it would mean the introduction of a universal ID card, which is a separate statement. But yes, it would mean the introduction of a specific card. Not everybody would have to have it. I do from time to time buy alcohol. For example, I was in a garden centre at the weekend. No, I wasn't. It wasn't a garden centre. It was a farm shop. And I bought a bottle of sparkling elderflower wine, which is a sort of champagne cod.
Yeah.
And I bought that just for the fun of it. Well, I would have had to have had an ID card for that, and I rather object to that.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that I don't want to have somebody unnecessarily, and I don't think that would be necessary, unnecessarily having details about me in order to produce the card.
That's a little. No,
You see, I have an ID card to go to the gym.
Yeah.
When I go to my gym, I present an ID card.
Yeah.
They have minimal information on me, and none of it has required to be proven because there's no legal requirement. If it was to comply with a legal age limit of something, like my driving licence, I would have to tip up personal information and
your date of birth.
And proof. Yes, my date of birth.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's nobody's business than mine. Except when I go to buy the alcohol, and it would be nice if they did, but they haven't for many, many years, if they said to me, can you prove
that you're 18? Yeah.
Exactly.
It would be nice, that, wouldn't it?
Well, it'd be nice. I'd get fed up with it after a couple of days, I promise you, but it would be nice. You see, I would be required, when buying that alcohol, I would require to produce an identity card, which, frankly, is pointless, because I promise you, I do look above the age by some clear margin. And what's even dafter is my dad going to the Legion in Blackpool for a drink, forgets his ID card and can't buy alcohol. Come on.
Well...
He's 87, for Christ's sake. Yeah, I'm sorry, George, you've not got your ID. I think there'd be a bloody riot.
He could staple it to his coat or something.
I'm not saying he's do lally. He just might forget it. He'll pin it to his walking stick and they got something clout with him when they're so rude. Well, but that's the thing. He would then be required, I would be required, you would be required to carry an ID card, which, frankly, only for 5 years of our life will we need.
But it's those 5 years between, let's say, 17 and 21, the big binge drinkers, anyone.
Yes,
the ones
indeed.
that are causing all the problems.
But for the next 70 years, we'd all have to carry one.
Well,
for no use.
So
what do you mean? So
if it put a crimp in the 17 to 21-year-old market, going out and punching the living daylights out of each other on a Friday night after they'd guzzled 3 gallons of bloody vodka, excuse the French, then...
Vodka's not French. No,
oh, it's Russian,
if you are prepared to forfeit so easily your right of passage in this land, then so be it. But frankly, I'm not.
Just a little side point, Alan, that this introduction of a 50 pence minimum tariff per unit, The government 2007, 2008 got 7.9 billion in duty from alcohol.
Yeah.
And it's costing 3 billion to repair the damage, as it were.
Yeah.
What would the crimp be on, this 50 pence a unit? If
according to Sir Liam Donaldson, the sort of head honcho in health, there would be, I don't know what the fiscal consequence to the Exchequer would be in terms of the cost. I don't know. I suspect, just looking at the rationale of it, it would be minimal, because it's, they charge taxes like beggary on alcohol anyway, and they change them every 12 months, so it wouldn't be difficult in terms of its implementation. So its implementation would cost no more than it does every year.
I'm not talking about the implementation, though. I'm talking about how much duty would they lose as a result of people not drinking as much.
I don't think they'd lose any, and frankly, I don't think they'd be bothered about losing it, rather like they're not bothered about losing the revenue from tobacco. And if they were losing revenue, if, they expect to get, I think you said 4 billion, if they expect to get 7 billion of revenue from alcohol, they introduce the minimum. The people who stop drinking it are those at the age group that can't really afford to pay more. If they lose revenue, they can merely adjust it next time, and instead of having a penny on a pint, put tuppence extra on a pint, and they'll get it back. So they'd have control of it.
The ones that can't afford it aren't necessarily the same people that are the binge drinkers.
That is probably so.
It's that's the pensioners that can't afford it. And
that is where the problem arises. But we have a tradition in our society, and that is that poor people can't afford some things, like food and televisions and all the rest of it. So we have that tradition. In fact, that's how we measure what poor people are. Can you afford to buy stuff? No, then you're poor.
Yeah, well.
So that's the way the world is sometimes. And I'm not suggesting that's an insignificant consequence. It's a very real one. The benefit is that those pensioners that can't afford it will live longer.
They're already
living too bloody long, I know, yeah. And the other thing is that what Sir Liam Donaldson says is that it would save £1 billion a year in health charges, if you like, the expenditure of the National Health Service dealing with the consequences of alcohol, long-term and short.
But the point is that if we, as a result of bringing this in, we lose £1.1 billion in revenue, then there's no net gain for the NHS, because the money's got to come from somewhere.
That's for sure. Good on you, Simon. Have a good day. It is recommended, says Ed in Wigan, it's recommended males consume no more than 4 units of alcohol a day. A 500 millilitre can of Foster's. The same applies as it did with Stella Foster's. If you're listening, the address is P.O. Box 951, Oxford Road, Manchester. My name is Allan Beswick, and that too will be on an internet sales device, or sold can by can to my friends. A man must eat. Anyway, a 500 millilitre can of Foster's is 2 units. It is recommended that adult males consume no more than 4. The gentleman who was on earlier was consuming a lot more than that. The pubs are already empty. Why should the honest working person who wants a drink occasionally have to suffer for the morons who frequent bars and can't handle it? Jim in Bury. Jim, it wouldn't affect pub prices in that most pubs, apart from those that have a sort of giveaway happy hour that everybody's trying to rule out, but it wouldn't affect a pub drink. A pub drink is already considerably more than 50 pence per unit of alcohol. Remember, this 50 pence per unit that's being suggested by Liam Donaldson and has been rejected by Parliament, well, at least by the government as a principle, and indeed by the Tories. This has been rejected, but the 50 pence per unit suggested is as a minimum, not an addition. It's not. So if you're currently getting your alcohol, as I said, if you're buying a pint of beer for £1 and it's got 2 units of alcohol in it, then your pint of beer costs £1. It will still cost £1. But if one pub decided to sell it for 98 pence, if it's got 2 units of alcohol, 50 pence minimum, it would still be £1. If you're already paying £1.50 for your pint of beer, because it's got 2 units of alcohol in it, it would still be £1.50. because that's 75 pence a unit, half as much again on top of the minimum that's proposed. So that's how it works. I hope that was clear. Another bit of information, a bottle of wine, says Lawrence. By that I suppose you mean a 75 centilitre bottle, the usual measure of a bottle, I think. A bottle of wine is approximately 9 units, says Lawrence. You lot know an awful lot about wine and units and all the rest of it. Hi, Beswick, that guy who drinks 350 units... It says a day here. No, it was a week, Gary. That guy who drinks 350 units a day, I bet he isn't working. How could he function? And I hope to God he doesn't drive. Well, Gary in Manchester, it wasn't 350 units a day, it was 350 units a week. And yes, he does work. Peter in Bury. Hiya, Peter.
Hi, Alan.
What have you got?
I make my own wine.
Good on you.
And it don't cost anything.
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't. All we've got is... apples and red currants. And
who's giving you them?
I'm growing in the garden.
Okay.
And I've also, 3 years ago, I decided that because of the amount of alcohol I consume in a week, I'll get my own allotment and grow my own. So 3 years ago, I planted 67 red currant bushes.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to harvest them this year. But meanwhile, I struck lucky because there were a bunch of Italians on here and they said, well, we make our own wine every year. And they go down to the market and they get a van load of grapes.
Yeah.
They crush them up. They put them in big barrels. And all they've done is press them, put them in a barrel. They leave it for 3 months and they drink it. And it works out to £1 a litre. And the alcohol strength is up to you. It started at 18% and we reduced it to 15%. So I drink a litre every night.
A litre?
A litre every night.
Mm.
I sleep like a baby. I get up in the morning at about 6:30 and I go to work.
Good on you.
And there's no hangovers because there's no chemicals in it. It's the chemicals what give you the hangover.
Well, they have all kinds of arguments about that, but lots of people do say. But how do you, for example, how do you fine it?
How do I what?
Filter it. What finings do you use to filter it?
You just put it through a very thin muslin cloth.
So you put it through a sock, through a nylon.
Yeah, and then you put it in a demijohn, you know. Now,
you
know what a demijohn
I
looks
do
like.
indeed know what a demijohn looks like. I've brewed wine.
Well, listen to this one. I thought I knew what a demijohn looked like until they brought them. They were 54-litre demijohns.
They're bigger, but I've seen them as well. Are they the ones that have straw around them?
That's it, yeah. Stop you breaking them.
Yeah.
And to keep the wine warm, of course. But... unfortunately, they're all getting to an age where they can't make it anymore. They're approaching their 80s and 90s. They've been drinking wine all their life, but they can't make it anymore because they're too old. So they're now. I've inherited them from them.
Fair enough.
I'll tell you, it is absolutely out of this world.
When I was a kid, I went to St Benedict's School, and in the caretaker's sort of hut, there, you know those demijohns you were just talking about?
Yeah.
There were about 6 of those, and I just saw them and thought, they must be like poisons, the stuff he cleans up with and everything, you know.
That's it, yeah.
And years and years later, and I mean probably 30 years later, I decided, because someone told me that I ought to have a go at it, I decided to brew some wine just to see how it was done. And I went in a wine shop and I saw those demijohns, and then I saw, you know, the bubbly filter thing they put on the top to let the
bubble trap.
The bubble trap. And I saw them, and I suddenly realised that our caretaker had been brewing his own wine on the premises. I thought, you crafty sod.
The carboys, what he had originally, would probably have had hydrofluoric acid in them.
Well, they may well have done, yes.
And then once they're sterilised, of course.
Yeah.
You could use them for any amount of uses, but...
well, he was up to all sorts with them. Anyway, Peter, we gotta go. Go on.
Let me just tell you one more thing.
Go on.
You can make a gallon of alcohol with £2 of sugar for 80p. You just put it in a demijohn and let it ferment for 2 weeks. Then all you need to do then is add it to your orange juice and, hey, presto, alcopops for £1. A gallon.
Derek in Stockport has just sent me this text. He said, do you want a new best friend?
Tell him to get an allotment. Mine look like Jurassic Park 3 years.
We were talking about allotments the other day, and what goes on, we now know. Shady business.
It's not. I was his privately run. It's fantastic.
Well, have a good day. Good on you, mate. Well, you will with all that wine. 0161 228 2255. Oh, dear God, here we go again. Pete in Eccles, determined to get me freebies off Stella Artois. Stella is 5%, and in a large 66-litre bottle is 3.3 units. I'm sick of the government always telling me how to eat, drink, just because a few idiots can't control their own life. The easy way out is to punish everyone and not try to cure the small percentage who have a problem. Pete in Eccles. He's not recommending that they publish anyone. He's saying that's what the government does because it's easier. And Colin in Bolton, when someone has their privileges withdrawn for illicit behaviour, they often might express an ingenuine apology in order to get their privilege reinstated. I cannot help but think that they wouldn't be so apologetic if there wasn't something in it for them. That's Colin in Bolton. Colin, you win the prize for being the biggest cynic today, except, of course, you're up against me, and I'm the biggest cynic forever. I make a living being a cynic. Bloody hell, Beswick! Confusion reigns on your booze debate. Struth, I've never heard such a confused debate. On Radio 4 this morning, whatever that is, they had an expert on that said that most supermarket wines sold for less than £4 and were 12.5%. And the proposed tax increase would put £1 on a bottle. It's a bad idea, plain and simple. Come on, Beswick, get your act together. Have a nice day. Well, I was doing. The lap coming. Just gone 20 to 2 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Alexia O'Connor.
The parents of 2 young boys killed by a drunk driver on the M6 have been told by Salford Council that they can't adopt more children because they're still grieving. Amanda and Phil Peake's sons died in the crash caused by footballer Luke McCormick last June. The Chief Medical Officer's been defending his plans to introduce a minimum price for alcohol of at least 50 pence per unit. Cillian Donaldson says it would lead to almost 100,000 less hospital admissions every year. And the trials opened in Austria of the man accused of keeping his daughter in a cellar beneath their home and fathering 7 children with her. Joseph Fritzl's admitted rape and incest, but has denied murdering one of the children. Manchester's weather, a dry and sunny day today. Your high is 14 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Problems in Ashton-under-Lyne with an accident that's partially blocking the southbound carriageway off Stockport Road, the A6017. It's partially blocked between the junction of Park Parade and Margaret Street through to the junction of William Street, and it's causing congestion at the moment back to the supermarket roundabout. In Macclesfield, we've got delays due to the roadworks on Cumberland Street as temporary traffic lights at the junction of Westminster Road, and one delayed flight into Manchester Airport. Aer Lingus flight EI728 from Cork was due in at 3:05, now not expected until 4:45. If you spot anything else, you can update us on 0161 244 4951. I'm Jane Grindell.
BBC Radio Manchester, Sports with Bill Rice.
Good afternoon. West Ham and Sheffield United have reached an out-of-court settlement over the long-running Carlos Tevez saga. Sheffield United had argued Tevez was ineligible to play when he helped West Ham achieve Premier League survival, and an independent hearing ruled in favour of their claim for compensation. A figure has not been disclosed, but it's understood to be in the region of £15 million and will be paid in instalments. Oldham Athletic are set to unveil former boss Joe Royle as their manager until the end of the season. The Latics sacked boss John Sheridan yesterday and swiftly brought a former great back to Boundary Park. Managing Director Simon Corney says it's a fantastic opportunity.
It will be a temporary job till the end of the season. There's no way on earth that we're going to appoint a permanent manager. Results may dictate what happens further down the line, but I doubt it. We are 1 point off the playoffs. We are playing the team above us, directly above us next Saturday, and it's an opportunity for them to jump straight back in.
Royal has already sent 2 loan players back to their parent clubs. Middlesbrough's Seb Hines and Hartlepool's Jan Butts, who only made 7 appearances between them, played their last game in the defeat to the MK Dons. The pair are now back in the North East. Dean Windass has left Boundary Park too and returned to his club Hull to discuss his future. It's still uncertain what will happen to the striker. Hull's assistant manager, Brian Horton, understands that Windass is unhappy and he's surprised that he hasn't played more games for the Latics.
I saw him play twice, and in the first game he was tremendous, and then I saw him play again and he came off. He was substituted, which he didn't like, and then he was left out, which he didn't like. So, they're talking now. I can see them talking in now, and hope they can resolve it over the next 2 days. But if he comes back, he can't play in the Premier League, and if he comes back, we don't know yet if he can play in the reserves.
Manchester City's away day woes continued as they lost 1-0 to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge yesterday. Michael Essien's first half goal was enough to move Chelsea within 4 points of United at the top of the Premier League, but City defender Nedum Anua feels that they deserved something from the game.
I think the way that we played, especially in the second half, it shows that we can sort of dominate games, and this is a big game. And do you know what I mean? They were at home, and for large spells of the game, they were under the most pressure. So I think in terms of that, we just know there's just a little thing missing, and then hopefully we can kick on.
Rochdale's players will be having a much-deserved break this week, according to their manager Keith Hill. Dale have played 5 times in the past fortnight, and Hill says they deserve some time off.
We need the break, we need the rest. The players need to get away from each other, get away from training, the monotony. I know it sounds strange saying there is a monotony of training, but we've been together since June the 28th, July the 1st. And it's a long time to be in each other's pockets, in each other's environments for the type of time that we are. So it's important that we get away from each other, we give them the adequate rest and recovery, and we go again against Wickham.
Oldham's Neil Eardley and the Stockport goalkeeper Owain Von Williams have been included in the Wales squad for their upcoming World Cup qualifiers. They take place against Finland and Germany at the end of this month. The England manager, Martin Johnson, says there's definite room for improvement after their 34-10 win over France at Twickenham. Sale's Mark Cueto was one of the England try-scorers. A last-minute drop goal from Martin Ridyard gave Lee victory yesterday by 23 points to 22 over Sheffield in their opening game in the Championship. Coach Neil Kelly was disappointed that his side didn't seal the win earlier.
If we'd have done things a little bit better within the game, been a bit better disciplined, we could have been looking at a comfortable victory, but as it was, we toughed it out and we got the win in the end, which is positive, but hopefully we don't leave it so close in future.
Oldham also made a winning start to the season. They had to come from 14 points behind to beat Blackpool 36-18. England's cricketers have 4 days to pick themselves up after they were comprehensively beaten by the West Indies in their 2020 international. The tourists batted first and were bowled out for 121. The Windies reached the total with 6 wickets and 2 overs to spare. It's now 14 international matches since England recorded a win. There are now fresh doubts over the future of the Indian Premier League too, with less than a month to go before the tournament. A second revised fixture list has been rejected by the government, who are concerned about security as the event clashes with India's general elections. And Mark Cavendish is a surprise inclusion for the Great Britain squad for next week's Track Cycling World Championships in Poland. Cavendish had said he wouldn't race on the track again after being the only member to miss out on a medal in Beijing. But the squad is without the injured trio Chris Hoy, Bradley Wiggins and Rebecca Romero.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
You can hear updates on City in the FA Youth Cup on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, the senior team go for a place in the UEFA Cup quarter-finals. We'll have full match commentary in Manchester Sports from 6.
BBC Radio Manchester.
And if you've just tuned in for Becky Won't, well, you've missed her. She sneaked in under the wire earlier. She stood in for Heather this morning. So you got Matt White. Yeah, you see? It's nothing but win-win round here, is it? Tessa in Stoke-on-Trent, how are you doing?
Hello.
What can we do for you, Tessa?
Well, I've got a cousin, and she lives in Beswick.
Right.
And she had her electric cut off on the 3rd of March. This cousin has got a disability. She's got learning difficulties.
Yeah.
She has got a support worker and she's got a social worker. But she's had her electricity cut off on the 3rd of March and she's still without it. The reason why she had it cut off was somebody had tampered with her meter.
Her meter, yeah.
Now, she had somebody staying with her a couple of times, and it looks like that's how it happened.
Yep.
And anyway, because she wouldn't have been able to do it. She isn't that wouldn't understand the system. But anyway, she's got she knows that they've tampered with it. And she knows that she's been cut off and can't get on now. She's got she's got electric heating, cooking, water, everything is electric. She's been sitting in that house now for the last, 13 days with nothing. She's got cats and dogs whom she loves, and they're there. So she can't really go anywhere to stay. She's got to be there.
Let me ask a daft question. How does she look after the cats and dogs?
Well, she goes in and feeds the cats and dogs and takes them out for a walk, and that's it.
Right. I know that this sounds like a daft question. You see, there is a sort of policy that people with disabilities, people with, I'll use the word suckling children and the like, do not get cut off, whatever their financial circumstances, and there's all sorts of procedures meant to kick in to deal with that.
Yeah.
Where there has been criminal activity, and tampering with a meter is exactly that, where there's been criminal activity, that status doesn't apply. People who...
I see.
Well, people who steal from the electricity boards can hardly expect the electricity boards to be falling over themselves to look after them when they're found out in their crime. So why did he ask the question I asked? Well, your position is that she couldn't have tampered with the meter.
No, but she doesn't know who did.
Well, because she's not able to do it herself.
No, she wouldn't do it herself, no.
But,
wouldn't have that ability.
Well, you say, that was why I asked.
Yeah.
How she looks after the cats and dogs.
Oh, she can do that. She loves her animals. But she wouldn't tamper with
Wouldn't is irrelevant. Wouldn't is irrelevant. Wouldn't means nothing. She wouldn't do it because she's a nice girl.
No, it's not because she's a nice girl. But she wouldn't have that sort of ability to do it. To know how to do it.
Well, that's where the debate might begin.
Yeah.
Because if there is any suspicion that she has, and it's not hard, it's not physically difficult to do.
Yeah.
And one could be taught to do it.
Oh, yeah, they could.
Unless one was beyond or below the level.
Beyond that. No,
right.
She isn't.
So we have here an allegation that she has been a party to, although she may not have physically done it herself.
Yeah, she has been a party to it.
She has been a party to theft.
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine you have a shop.
Oh, yes,
and people come into your shop and steal from it.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I do understand that.
So that's where the problem arises.
Yeah.
I cannot think of a way of her... You see, normally, when somebody's electricity is cut off because they've not paid their bill, but they fall into the protected category, what the authorities do, what the supplier does, is it puts in a meter where you have to pay in advance.
Yeah, well, that's what she had in. That's what she's got in.
Right. Now, the problem here is that if one has that meter and then steals from it, what do we do to protect the supplier and therefore the rest of us?
Well, that's what I have had words with her about this, and
Well, it's not about her. It's about what... You see...
I have told her about this, and she understands.
Tessa...
She says she didn't understand what
Tessa,
they were doing.
the issue isn't how do you... The issue isn't how do you get her to understand. The issue is how do you convince the authorities that this, please accept this term with the grace it's offered,
I know.
This thief isn't going to steal from them again.
Well, I do understand that, but I don't think she will again.
Well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it has happened before, I do understand that,
If somebody stole from you and then said, look, I'm awfully sorry, I won't steal again, how much would you lend them?
I wouldn't lend them anything.
Neither will...
I understand
Neither will
that.
the electric supply people. It's a very difficult position. It's difficult because she is complicit in a theft from the supplier.
Yeah.
I can't see a way forward.
I can't either, and that's bothering me terribly.
Well, what I suggest happens, you say she has a caseworker, a support...
She has, yes. She's got a support worker.
Is she connected to or in contact with the social services?
Yes, we're in contact. She's got a social worker as well.
What's the social worker saying?
Well, they can't do anything because they haven't got any control over the electric.
Nobody has control, but what have they...
They haven't got any say in the electrics coming
Have they spoken to them?
I have, yes.
No, has the social services department spoken to the electric supply company?
I don't know.
You don't know? Well,
because I did ask him that, but he says he wouldn't have done it, because you see, you know, you don't get the same one twice. He says he wouldn't have done it then. He says they don't normally need to.
Okay. Well, they don't normally need to is irrelevant.
Yeah.
If their client is
She is in bad
experienced...
state, I must admit.
If their client is experiencing difficulty, their job as a social worker is to do their utmost to diminish that difficulty and to help
They
with
haven't done it.
Okay. I would suggest it's a longish process, but I would suggest that you get your cousin to see her local MP at his or her next surgery, which will probably be the coming weekend.
I'll have to try and get her to do that, but it's very difficult to get her to do things, because you might tell her today to do it, but tomorrow she might have forgotten.
Well, okay.
I've got to keep her and keep on her back all the time until I get her to do it.
You say she has a support worker. It's up to the support worker.
The support worker should be helping her, but I know it's not easy to manage with her, because what you tell her today, she forgets tomorrow, and that's where the problem is with her.
I understand that. Maybe you should, if you can. I mean, it's not your responsibility.
I'll try my best.
But if you can do. If you can go and see the MP on her behalf and explain the case, somebody's got to get this information to the MP. The MP might. The MP might.
Can't do anything, at least.
The MP can't enforce anything, but he or she might write to the. I mean, I know the MP for Beswick. He's a good bloke.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't know anybody up there. Because
Well,
I'm
no,
not from
indeed.
that area,
But he's also got, you know, thousands of people to work with. But if you went to see her MP and explained it, he might be able to find a way of convincing the electricity board that this was an apparition and it's not going to happen again.
It won't happen again.
Well,
you
can't assure us. You
well,
can't
I can assure them.
us. Well, you
because if it
can't.
does.
You can't. You've just told me.
Yeah,
that
she would forget. Yeah, but she's not going to let anybody else into her house.
You don't know that.
No, I know. I'm doing my very best for her.
Well, yes, but your very best for her...
It's not enough.
No, please listen to me.
Yeah.
Listen to me.
Yeah.
Listen to me, and don't ever forget what I'm just about to say. It's really, 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 really important. Your very best for her is not to say things you can't deliver.
Yeah. Well, when she got herself into other difficulties, little things, it was only little things, like borrowing money and things like that, and I came up and I paid it all back, then I said, now that is it. No more. Any more, and you're going to be in trouble yourself. And she sat down and she cried and carried on, and then she listened to me,
Tessa,
and I've not had any more trouble from her. Now, I didn't know about this problem.
Tessa, you will not help her by saying... It don't matter what you say to me, I'm just a little fat bloke on the wireless.
Yeah.
You will not help her by saying to the authorities she won't do it again.
No.
Because they'll say, where's your proof? And you're saying, I haven't got any. And you've just lost.
Yeah, you have.
You've just
You're
lost.
right.
Because you've just gone in there and said, this is what I can deliver. And they say, OK, how? And you say, well, I don't know. And they say, right, well, we're not dealing with her anymore because Tessa's useless.
Yeah, this is it.
I'll tell you how you could guarantee getting electricity turned on.
Yeah.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
I will pay the bill.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not suggesting you do that, but if you said to the electricity...
She's paid it
no, listen
already.
No, she's not paid for what she's stolen.
No, she hasn't. No.
She's not paid for what she's stolen. If you got on and said, I will pay the bill, lock it up, lock the thing up, put it on a quarterly meter, lock it so that she can't get anywhere near it. The only way to it is when the meter reader comes and opens it and reads it. She cannot interfere with it, and whatever the bill, I'll pay it. If you did that, they'd listen. But you could end up being millions out of pocket.
Oh, no. This is what my husband said. He says, you pay everything and it'll carry on.
Of course it will.
But I have to...
You know, the scally that did her meter could say, well, look, you know, this is brilliant. Let's have a cannabis farm in the back bedroom. The electricity's free, and you're paying it because you've guaranteed it. So that's the danger you're in. Talk to the MP, you might get somewhere.
I'm going to have to try my very best. But I just don't know anything else to do, because it had got to such a stage this morning that another day of this, and I can't cope, because I'm an old age pension and I've got my grandchildren with me. I can't afford to keep running around after somebody who's 48 years old.
Sometimes in life, Tessa, sometimes in life, you have to say, I will give her all the moral support I can.
Well, I
will listen to all her problems. I will do everything in my power, but whatever needs doing, she gets done, or she suffers. You sometimes have to be cruel for your own sake. Never mind to be kind, for your own sake.
Oh, yeah.
We are not our brother's keeper.
Oh, tried that.
You are an extraordinarily kind individual. We don't get many of them on here, let me tell you. Hey, if you really want to get involved, then honestly, I think at this point, it's very difficult to get someone who's been stolen from.
I know, it's awful.
But the MP might be able to start saying, hang on a minute, this is one of the realities of life. We need electricity in our life, and you can get on your high horse as high as you like, but something needs to be done. All right.
That's it.
Good luck with it.
And thanks ever so much for your help.
Thank you for being so kind.
Okay.
I tell you, for now, none of my cousins have come rushing to my aid.
Well, that's the only one she's got.
I've got dozens. They won't give a door a bang if it were me. I don't blame them. Have a good day, Tessa.
Thank you.
Ta-ra now. Actually, I think they would, you know. I think they would, which is really... Are you listening, June? Send us a tenner. 0161 228 2255. We're going to have a chat tomorrow. You're more than welcome. Matt White's sitting in for... Hang on. Matt White's sitting in for Becky, who sat in forever, and I've been sat in for me. And it may be all back to normal tomorrow. I've got an headache now. See you tomorrow. Ta-ra now.
Come on, you Raves.
Hey, what about you Blues?
Yeah, well, fair enough. We want to know who you support.
But more importantly...